Cat Williams has spent years criticizing powerful people in entertainment, but few celebrity stories have generated as much discussion as the ongoing saga surrounding Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith. Unlike many Hollywood breakups that happen suddenly and publicly, the collapse of their marriage unfolded slowly over decades. What appeared from the outside to be one of entertainment's strongest relationships was, according to both Will and Jada's own accounts, a partnership struggling with deep differences long before the public knew anything was wrong. For years, the Smith family presented a unique image to the world. They were not simply another celebrity couple. Together, they built a brand centered around openness, self-discovery, and unconventional thinking. Interviews, books, talk shows, and public appearances often highlighted their belief in honesty, personal growth, and challenging traditional ideas about marriage and family. To many fans, they represented a modern family willing to discuss topics that other celebrities preferred to keep private. At the center of that image were two very different people. Will Smith's rise is one of the most successful stories in modern entertainment. Born and raised in Philadelphia, he first found success in music before becoming a television star through The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. From there, he built one of the most impressive film careers in Hollywood history, starring in major box office successes including Independence Day, Men in Black, Ali, and The Pursuit of Happiness. For much of his career, Smith was known as one of the most likable and reliable stars in the industry. His public image was built on optimism, discipline, and an almost constant desire to inspire people. Jada Pinkett Smith followed a different path. Raised in Baltimore, she attended the Baltimore School for the Arts, where she formed a close friendship with Tupac Shakur. After establishing herself through television and film roles, she became a respected actress in projects including A Different World, Set It Off, and the Matrix franchise. Unlike Will, whose public image often centered on positivity and broad appeal, Jada frequently spoke about personal struggles, emotional healing, and challenging traditional expectations. Those differences existed long before they married. According to Will's memoir, Jada was never fully comfortable with the traditional wedding that took place on December 31, 1997. She preferred something smaller and more personal, while family expectations and circumstances pushed the couple toward a more traditional ceremony. Looking back, Will described the situation as one of the first major compromises in their relationship. Years later, both would speak openly about how they often viewed marriage differently from the very beginning. That difference in perspective became a recurring theme throughout their relationship. In later interviews, Jada reflected on spending years believing that following the traditional path of marriage, family, and success would automatically lead to happiness. Eventually, she came to a different conclusion. She spoke about realizing that another person could not be responsible for her happiness and that personal fulfillment had to come from within. While those reflections came much later, they highlighted a question that appeared to exist beneath the surface of the marriage for many years. One of the most significant moments came in 2011 during Jada's 40th birthday celebration. According to Will's own account, he spent years planning an elaborate event designed to honor her life and achievements. Instead of bringing them closer together, the celebration led to one of the most serious arguments of their marriage. The disagreement became so intense that their daughter Willow witnessed it and became emotionally distressed. Will later described the incident as a turning point, a moment when both of them began confronting deeper issues that could no longer be ignored. At the same time, another issue continued to create tension beneath the surface. Throughout their marriage, Jada's friendship with Tupac Shakur remained a sensitive subject. Jada frequently described Tupac as someone who played a major role in her life, while Will openly admitted struggling with feelings of jealousy regarding their bond. In interviews, he acknowledged that he found it difficult to compete with the connection they shared, even years after Tupac's death. Although neither person suggested this issue alone caused problems in the marriage, it became one of several emotional challenges that remained unresolved for years. Looking back, what stands out is not a single scandal or dramatic event. Instead, it is the gradual emergence of differences in how Will and Jada viewed happiness, marriage, family, and personal identity. The public often saw a successful Hollywood couple building an empire together. Behind the scenes, however, both have since described a relationship that was becoming increasingly difficult to maintain. Those tensions would eventually become impossible to hide, leading to revelations that transformed public understanding of one of Hollywood's most famous marriages. The public's understanding of Will and Jada's marriage changed dramatically in 2020, but the reality behind the headlines was far more complicated than most people realized. By the time the world became obsessed with the word entanglement, the relationship that audiences thought they were watching had already changed years earlier. A major turning point came when singer August Alsina entered the Smith family circle. Introduced through their son Jaden, Alsina developed a close relationship with the family during a difficult period in his life. What initially appeared to be a supportive friendship eventually became something more personal. In July 2020, Jada addressed the situation directly during an episode of Red Table Talk, confirming that she had been involved in what she described as an entanglement with Alsina while she and Will were separated. The interview immediately became one of the most discussed celebrity moments of the decade. The word entanglement entered popular culture almost overnight, generating countless memes, jokes, and debates across social media. Many viewers focused on the affair itself, but a more important detail was often overlooked. According to Jada, the relationship happened during a period when she and Will were no longer together as a couple. What appeared to many people as a story about infidelity was, according to both of them, a story about two people who had already drifted apart. Years later, Jada offered additional insight into why she chose to discuss the situation publicly. In a resurfaced interview, she explained that she felt accepting public criticism was easier than allowing continued speculation about her family. She suggested that she was willing to carry the blame if it helped bring an end to the story and allowed her family to move forward. Whether people agreed with that explanation or not, it highlighted how differently Will and Jada often approached public scrutiny. At the same time, another issue revealed just how differently they viewed family and responsibility. In his memoir, Will described a therapy exercise where he and Jada were asked to list their priorities in life. The results exposed a major difference in how they saw the world. Jada placed the children and family at the top of her list, while Will placed himself first, before his wife and children. Will later explained his reasoning by comparing it to putting on an oxygen mask before helping others. But the exercise revealed a deeper philosophical divide between them. What seemed like a simple counseling exercise became another example of how differently they approached relationships and personal fulfillment. Despite these struggles, the public continued to see them as a married couple. That perception changed dramatically on March 27, 2022. During the Academy Awards, comedian Chris Rock made a joke about Jada's shaved head, referencing her alopecia. Moments later, Will Smith walked onto the stage and slapped Rock in front of a global audience. The incident instantly became one of the most shocking moments in Oscar history and dominated headlines around the world. For many viewers, the slap appeared to be the act of a husband defending his wife. But more than a year later, Jada revealed something that changed how many people viewed the event. In October 2023, while promoting her memoir Worthy, she disclosed that she and Will had actually been living completely separate lives since 2016. They were still legally married, but their romantic relationship had effectively ended years earlier. According to Jada, they had become exhausted from trying to make the marriage work and had not yet figured out how to explain their situation publicly. The revelation stunned many people, because it meant the public had spent years viewing Will and Jada through a completely different lens than the one they themselves were living. Even Jada admitted she was surprised when Will referred to her as "my wife" during the Oscars incident, because they had not used those terms with each other for a long time. Yet perhaps the most surprising development came afterward. Rather than pushing them further apart, Jada later suggested that the Oscars incident changed how she viewed their future. In later interviews, she described the event as a moment that made her realize she was not ready to walk away from Will completely. While the slap caused enormous damage to Will's public image and career, Jada suggested it also forced both of them to confront realities they had been avoiding for years. By this stage, the marriage was no longer simply a private relationship. It had become a public conversation about love, loyalty, separation, identity, and the difficulty of maintaining a family under constant scrutiny. What began as a Hollywood love story had evolved into something much more complicated, with millions of people watching every step along the way. What makes the story of Will and Jada so different from most celebrity relationships is that there was never a single moment that ended everything. There was no divorce announcement, no dramatic breakup, and no public declaration that the marriage was over. Instead, the relationship slowly transformed into something neither of them originally expected, while the public continued viewing them through the lens of a traditional Hollywood marriage. By the time Jada revealed that they had been separated since 2016, many people felt they had been watching two different stories at once. The public story showed a famous couple still attending events together, raising a family together, and supporting one another publicly. The private reality, according to both Will and Jada, was far more complicated. They had spent years trying to understand what their relationship would look like after realizing that the version of marriage they had built was no longer working. That revelation changed the way many people viewed everything that came before it. The August Alsina controversy, the Red Table Talk discussions, and even the Oscars incident were suddenly seen through a different perspective. Moments that once appeared confusing started to make more sense once people understood that the relationship had already changed years earlier. For some observers, this explanation brought clarity. For others, it raised even more questions about why the couple continued presenting themselves publicly as husband and wife. The criticism became especially intense after the release of Jada's memoir, Worthy. While some readers appreciated her honesty, others felt that too much of the family's private life had been shared publicly. Critics argued that every new revelation seemed to create another wave of headlines, often placing Will Smith at the center of public discussion. Supporters responded that Jada was simply telling her side of a story that had already become a global conversation. At the center of much of that criticism was a simple question: why stay married at all? Neither Will nor Jada has provided a single answer. Instead, both have described their relationship as something that evolved beyond traditional definitions. They have spoken about friendship, partnership, family, and commitment in ways that do not always fit conventional expectations. While many people struggle to understand that approach, both have repeatedly suggested that their connection remains important despite the challenges they have faced. What is often overlooked is the role their children played throughout this journey. While public attention focused on the marriage itself, Will and Jada consistently emphasized the importance of protecting their family. Even during periods of separation and personal struggle, both remained committed to raising their children and maintaining a sense of unity. That commitment appears to be one of the few constants that survived every controversy. The public reaction to their story also says something about modern celebrity culture. For years, audiences celebrated the Smith family for being open and honest. Yet when that honesty revealed uncomfortable realities, many of those same audiences became critical. The situation exposed a contradiction that exists throughout celebrity culture. People often demand authenticity from public figures, but they are not always comfortable with what authenticity looks like when it arrives. Will Smith's reputation has also undergone a dramatic transformation during this period. For decades, he was viewed as one of the most universally liked figures in entertainment. The Oscars incident changed that image almost overnight. Yet despite the backlash, many fans continue to sympathize with him, seeing a man who spent years trying to balance personal struggles, public expectations, and family responsibilities under extraordinary pressure. Jada's public image has experienced an equally significant shift. To some people, she represents honesty, self-discovery, and the courage to discuss difficult topics openly. To others, she has become one of the most polarizing figures in entertainment. Few celebrities generate stronger opinions, either positive or negative. As of today, the future of their relationship remains uncertain. They are still legally married. They continue to speak about one another with respect. Neither has announced plans for divorce. At the same time, both acknowledge that their relationship no longer resembles the marriage the public once believed it to be. Perhaps that is why the story continues to fascinate people. It is not simply a celebrity relationship. It is a story about expectations, identity, love, disappointment, personal growth, and the challenge of maintaining a connection while constantly evolving as individuals. The public may continue debating who was right, who was wrong, or what really happened behind closed doors. But after years of interviews, books, and public discussions, one thing has become clear. The story of Will and Jada is not the story of a perfect Hollywood marriage that suddenly fell apart. It is the story of two people who spent decades trying to make sense of a relationship that became far more complicated than either of them expected.